Okay, cool.
Dude, that's cool. So, welcome everybody. The way that this came about is a bunch of people were sending Klee emails like, hey, what are you all doing for this? Can you answer all these questions? And Klee did, I don't know, 4 or 5 like hour-long phone calls with folks. And then she said to me, Jack, it's impossible for me to get my work done and do this. So do you want me to tell people no, or how do we do this? And so then we kind of brainstormed, let's bring everybody together a little bit. We'll record it so people can watch it. And also it would be the most helpful if you all took some notes and sent them to Klee, and then we'll compile them. Because if you're like me, you're getting sick of too many Zoom webinar things where you have to watch an hour's worth of whatever to get like a 3-minute piece of something that you actually want. And we're going to try not to waste your hour, but we're going to make it as interactive as possible. And I didn't come with anything prepared, and Klee didn't come with anything prepared. We're just going to answer questions that you all have. We have some questions already. Hi, Jen. We'll go from there. But the basically what we're trying to do is scale this learning so everybody can be ahead of where they are now. And then we'll maybe do something like this again once y'all start doing stuff. And I'm really glad that Carolyn's here, because I know Carolyn's already doing a version of virtual camp that's slightly different than our version. And I like the stuff that she's doing. And so we can ask her about that too. So just really quick, if you haven't seen what we're doing, at Stomping Ground, we're running about 6 hours of programming every day. Some of it is week-long stuff where you sign up the week before and come for the whole week. So we run Dungeons and Dragons is our most popular option. And like 10-ish kids come and do a scaled down version of Dungeons and Dragons every hour or every day for an hour from like 1 to 2 or whatever time it is on the schedule. And we have 3 of those going on because we found people liked those, were more popular than our drop-in options. And then we run 2 drop-in options a day, which are silly stuff like workout stuff. And or right now I think indoor sports is going on. I have no idea what that means exactly, but Ray and Wyatt are doing some form of indoor sports with kids right now. But also yoga and whatever. And Klee can send you our like list of all the schedules, or you can just scroll through our Facebook or Instagram, and they're all that stuff is always, we're posting like wild. And then we run a like debrief circle, which is, we call it Embers, at the end of the night at camp. And so we're running Embers at the end of the day, which is a relatively lowly attended option for us, but kind of fits with our brand of wanting to like have that as something that's going on, even if it's not the most popular option. And those are things like mindful drawing or kind of prompted questions. And then we're running like a handful of little things that are happening randomly, like teen Embers and teen discussion groups. And we ran a thing that I don't remember what we called it externally, but internally we called it toddler time, which was like for the littlest kids. And those, so we're trying to do a bunch of things like that are happening all day, every day. And they're mostly like kind of option based. And the only reason why I described all that is because Carolyn is running some stuff that maybe we can ask her about later. So just direct your questions to Carolyn if you're wondering about what I think you're calling bunks. And Carolyn, will you just give us like 2 minutes on what you're doing? Yeah, this was unscheduled. I didn't know Carolyn was coming, so because she's here,
my schedule is packed these days. So, so we also are running daily like 30-minute drop-ins. That the attendance is a little bit weird, and the activity I feel like is more content-based. And I wanted a time where the kids could actually hang out with each other. Recently, I was with an 8-year-old who was FaceTiming, and it was like, hi, can you see me? Can you see me? And it was really annoying. So we decided to make bunks based off their ages and gender, which is what our bunks are based off at camp. And there's like 8 to 10 kids in a bunk with 2 staff members. And they do like a weird question of the day. They introduce themselves, and then they play like charades or something, or an activity. It's not about the activity. And all the time we tell our staff, like, if your kids are really into the older kids the other day had a debate who would win a hot dog or a taco, and like that took up the 20-minute time, and then it was over, and then that was it. And it also has been really empowering to our high school and college age staff, because like yesterday I popped up into a room and they were like, it was pajamas, and the counselors just decided it was pajama day for their bunk. So really like awesome camp things are happening with that, and I feel like much more of a camp director during that time than like a show producer. Is that helpful?
That was awesome, Carolyn. And are you charging for any of your things yet?
So we're not charging right now because it's a little bit of a test run. And the goal for this, they meet twice a week. So they meet on Sundays and Wednesdays, 30 minutes at a set time. We'll do it through April, and in May we'll stop. And then in June, we've kind of prepared to do virtual camp as well, and we'll charge for that. I do believe though that we missed a huge opportunity to charge, because like, just like me, if I pay for a workout class online a million more times to show up, then the people who pay their kid would be more likely to show up. For our older group, we have like a middle school 6th to 8th grade Camp Mogul, which they're like building a business. That meets for 5 days in a row for 90 minutes. That we charged $50 and had 14 kids sign up immediately.
Cool. We have not started charging for anything yet. I think we've had like 150 kids participate, individual kids at different times. And our camp has about 500 individual campers that participate with us during the summer. And probably 2/3 of the kids that have come to Hometown Stomping Ground are camp kids, and half of them are kids that have not, or a third of them are kids that have not been to Stomping Ground before. And we have received just over $800 in donations from people directly tied to, like, they're like, so-and-so loved whatever, how can I help? And, you know, we've raised that in like about $100 chunks. So that's been our experience. And I'm going to shut up now and open it up for questions. Klee just reminded me that we have to be done by 2:00 because that's when D&D starts. So in this room. So we will be strict on the schedule for that reason. But please, follow up questions and stuff. We'll take all that stuff, and we want to be. The goal is to help everyone be as useful as possible toward doing this. And I'm going to shut up now. Please ask any questions, and we'll tell you what we're doing. It isn't perfect. This isn't like a presentation on the best way to do things. It's a Q&A on what we're actually doing and where the mistakes are.
You had mentioned Dungeons and Dragons was a winner, which makes sense. Have there been any other home run programs that you think are really replicable, or ones that are you'd like to kind of use as a touchstone?
Our most popular programs and ones that kids ask to do as week-long. So week-longs is what we call the options that are Monday through Friday. They're at the same time each day for 1 hour, and they tend to be things that you can build on. That's what we call them at camp. So the language is understood by most of our kids, and they get what's going to happen. D&D is one of those, along with cooking and baking. We ran both of those once. We originally ran baking not as a week-long and noticed that kids loved it, and it was a little bit hectic when we didn't give them or didn't give all of them the recipe ahead of time. So when we ran it as a week long, we sent the parents an email with a PDF of here's what they'll be making each day. We had substitutes for a lot of ingredients because we know kids aren't going to all have the same stuff at home. And they loved getting to make food. We did smoothie making also, which got a ton of hits. So clearly kids are into making their own food and snacking at home during this time. And the other ones that get a lot of hits are crafty things and a lot of art activities that are pretty easily replicated at home. At Stomping Ground, we have a makerspace like a lot of camps have. So we ran online makerspace as a week long last week, not this week, but last week a lot of kids were asking for it again. So we will run it again this week. And we found that the earlier, something that we're getting better at and still not perfect at is getting that information out as early as possible to parents so kids can be the most prepared, and they can ask questions like, if I don't have this, what's something else I can use? And we can give them some resources. And it's never perfect, but some kids are still down to just watch, even if they don't want to make the craft. They want to hang out and talk to friends and the staff that are running the stuff.
And similar to what Carolyn said, which was that it was about connecting, not the activity. At Stomping Ground, we never have that cool of activities, to be honest. Like, we don't have expensive activity. We don't have rock walls, or we don't have fancy stuff. So our parents are used to the language that everything's about connection. And I think that right now for us, we saw an opportunity and a gap in what was happening to be about interaction, because like I just saw that like Dex Shepard and Kristen Bell just launched like an online camp that's like recorded. There's so much awesome recorded stuff out there that we are more focused on the interaction and less on whatever's actually happening in terms of like awesome programming. It is awesome programming, but it's awesome programming about connection and less about like great products. Oh, pet show and tell. All right, sorry. Question. Keep them going.
Following up on something you were talking about a little bit earlier, Jack, how do you feel like you are successfully acquiring your new campers? You said about a third are brand new. How do you think that's happening?
Klee, you may have this data actually, but we early on got a little bit of publicity in Rochester, especially, which is where our office is, and that got us some kids. And then that was a blip, and then mostly families that we know that are interacting with Hometown Stomping Ground a lot are telling their friends that this is a great option. And yeah, that and the younger kid, we've never interacted with the youngest kid demographic before because we're a sleepaway camp where kids come at 6 years old. So having 3, 4, 5-year-olds and an 18-month-year-old, Kurtz's daughter was on this morning. Like that's a demographic that we've never participated with, and we're very excited to be connecting with early, because that's those are future campers hopefully.
Sorry,
but
I was just going to say on our I think this is part of your question, like where are new folks coming from? On our registration online, we ask, how'd you hear about Hometown Stomping Ground? And when I see those come in, I've seen between 5 to 10 new folks answering that question, and they say a Google search for online camp or online spring break, online activities, parents who are intentionally looking for that stuff. Things like Hometown Stomping Ground are coming up. Does that answer, Katie?
Yep, thank you.
Luke, the hidden curriculum right now is just ask questions when it makes sense to ask questions.
I thought the hidden curriculum was always just make fun of Jack.
That's also a part of the hidden curriculum. If you haven't gotten that, I give consent to always be picked on.
Look at you giving consent out like candy. You're amazing.
This is a question really for anybody doing online programming right now. How are you deciding on program content? Are you letting it just be like strengths and skills led based on the staff that are offering programs, or do you have another tactic? What's working well there?
I can go and then Carolyn add. Our first approach was let's try to do one kind of active activity a day. Let's offer like a more and this is the way we think about our schedule during the summer too. Let's try to think of sometimes a sport or an arts activity, very broad terms. And then in the beginning, we wanted to also offer what we were calling homework help, as not with the intention to educate kids necessarily, but more so be, which is still happening in some cases, but more so be a help for kids who do have schoolwork at home. Can some of our staff help them get that stuff done? And we noticed that kids who were coming on to that didn't even have questions about their homework like we intended. They really just wanted to hang out with staff. So then we kind of cut that. If parents ask us for that, I'll do my best to pair them with a staff member who can help their kid with some homework. So many of our staff work in schools, obviously. But that's how we think about the schedule. And then we're getting better at getting feedback from parents and kids on some of those things. So like I mentioned at the beginning, online makerspace or baking was asked to run repeats. But I think that that's the way that we think about our daily schedule, every other day, trying to offer an active, something artistic, something sporty, something like D&D that's more creative or imaginative.
Yeah, we do the similar of like active and passive for that. And then for bunk time, I've tried to make it as easy and stress-free for our counselors. So it's literally like almost a lesson plan of like, here's the intro, here's the question of the day, here's the activity, and here's the goodbye that you say every day, because Zoom already is a little bit terrifying for someone who's not like so comfortable with it. And so it's just like, what's a simple activity that you can't mess up? Yesterday, they all just made wrote random acts or random notes of kindness just to do something together. So I just think it's a time where like we can't compete with like Mo Williams and all those professionals, but we can compete in the connection and kids feeling good about themselves.
Love that. And Luke has a hand up.
Sorry, I was not sure if that was how to ask questions or not. So one of the things I've been wrestling with, and Alyssa and I were talking about this yesterday, is engaging with older kids. And so Klee, I was wondering and I apologize if this question was asked already. I was literally trying to get out of another Zoom call to get here because I'd rather be here. But I'm wondering, like, I can think of 1,000 ideas for like the 6 to 13-year-old range. Like I played some games with kids on Zoom yesterday and they loved it, and I could do that all day, every day, and parents would be happy. 14 to like our camp runs 9 to 29 in the summer. Our last week of the summer is for 18 to 29-year-olds. And I am maybe just not cool enough to hang out with them. So Klee, if you want to come run a week of summer, I don't know, but like, yeah, has anyone had any experience or thoughts about that age group and how to be authentic with them? For context, we are a faith-based camp. So like, you know, the story I like to tell is one time I got yelled at by a parent because we did morning calisthenics and one of the kids called it yoga to their parents, and I got told off for doing yoga at a Bible camp, which I was like, but that's personal opinion versus a parent's opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, the first week we ran a Zoom call specifically for teens. They loved it, and we had a really great turnout. And we noticed that we didn't get to hear from all of them because there wasn't a good structure to it. It was kind of just like teen hangout time. So we were hearing for a lot of them. And then at the end of it, we kind of got together with the staff who led that and said, we think we need a better plan because there were some kids who maybe they're not as outgoing or willing to speak up in a Zoom call, and like figuring this format out was really weird, and we didn't hear from them. So we shifted it to, Jack mentioned in the beginning what Embers is. It's what we call at Stomping Ground to debrief or reflect on the day. We switched running teen Embers, so it was clear who the facilitator was. There was more of a structured activity, but it's age appropriate and giving teens a space to vent, which they want right now, and connect with their friends who we know that they're already like texting and FaceTiming on their own time, but to be with staff too and feel like a little bit more like a camp setting, they're liking the Embers a lot. So I would say having something more structured like that is helpful. And what we learned after running something that was just kind of like, let's catch up and hang out.
Luke, something we're looking at leveling up, maybe the end of May or the end of April. And I think we're gonna test a like pay what you want kind of strategy here too, to see if people like what the level of payment is. And our community is used to pay what you want stuff for us. That's like very standard for our programming. We're looking at running like a weekend retreat virtually for teens, that instead of it being spread out across like an hour a day, that it's more intensive and for the weekend. So starting program like teen retreat starting at 7 p.m. on Friday, maybe ending at 9:30 or 10, something like that, and taking meals off, but in between running programming that you're stuck with the 12, 15, 20, I don't know how many kids are going to come, kids, and we'll do little breakout rooms and things like that that are designed to let kids like teens actually make virtual friendships or build upon actual friendships, as opposed to like just get some entertainment from something. I don't know how it's going to work, and we'll do it, and then we'll tell you how we failed. But that's where that's the direction we're looking at for the next couple weeks.
That's cool. Yeah, it actually, the two questions I came into this with thinking about was that question, and then directly related to what you just said, how are you guys feeling burnout wise? And so we can talk about that later, but when you say weekend retreat, my mind immediately goes to how is Jack doing? Does he need a hug somewhere? Like, I don't know. So he's good. He's good, right? Like,
well, I'm not doing almost any of this work, so
we know.
I just come up with some kooky idea, and then Klee pulls it off with Ray. So, but we did. Great question, and Klee, can I tell them that you kind of had like a little meltdown? Cool. So Klee had like a nice little meltdown, reasonably just like working so hard, had like a little meltdown last week, something like that. So this is standard at Stomping Ground, is one of us has a meltdown and then we build a new system to solve the meltdown. That's how our operating procedure works, because we are almost always doing things that are new for us. So we had a little meltdown. We built some new systems, but they weren't great yet. And so then yesterday I sent Klee like an obnoxiously long email with a bunch of work to do in the next 4 days that will hopefully make the rest of this month easier, which included we're going to start paying some seasonal staff to take over some of the hosting duties. We have 2 people on all of the calls. One of them is I love that. I don't love that you were crying, but I love that share. One of them is the person leading the activity, and one of them is like we call it the host, but it's like the person who does all the production and makes sure that Zoom works. And Klee and Ray were the hosts for almost all the meetings until this week. And so now we're going to pay our seasonal, like 1 seasonal staff, 3 seasonal staff per week to host 3 sessions to free up some of Klee's time, because she's been kind of stuck and she likes that part. But so I think that we're needing to build systems to make this easier, because it is hard to continue.
Yeah, and just to give back on the donation note, I was talking to a camp in Alberta, Canada, that's doing like a digital virtual camp right now, and they use CampBrain, and so in the process they just ask for donations, which I think is similar to what you guys do. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but they definitely saw it. Like their bookkeeper called them, was like, I think we're getting scammed. There's all these like $20 donations coming in. I can't figure out why. And they had to explain to her that it was just this option. So it is like, it does work. And they did the same thing as you, completely free optional donation. And they've seen a little bit of a return on investment for that. So. To then pay staff to help Klee survive.
We pay our staff as well. They get $10 an hour and they work 3 hours a week, with the idea being that like 1 hour is staff meeting, 1 hour they're reaching out to their campers, and 1 hour split into 2 half-an-hours is bunk time. And it was like a really attractive thing for donors, because they do want to give you money actually right now, but they just are not sure like of what you have to offer. So we were able to like write off the cost of paying staff, and they were excited to have some form of small income for the week, and also just some structure to their week. The other thing that I thought Laura did, I like read all of Stomping Ground's emails, is that when she had a parent thing, she said she would facilitate. So for the older people, including myself and my family that I was on with last night, like someone's just got to facilitate the Zoom call, even if they are hanging out. That's why we have staff in there, because you do need to hear everyone's voice. We also limited the bunks to a max of 10 kids for that reason, so everyone could speak and like build it out, so everyone has to answer every question.
I've got a question for if you figured out anything on like the amount of hours in a week that like your average camper might be interested. We're kind of I was gonna jump into a lot of this like a week ago, right when it became apparent that summer probably isn't going to happen as usual. So I've decided to like save it as in a month, be like, hey, summer's not going to happen, but look at this. So we're going to be able to put some more planning into it. And I think I want to do something kind of with Carolyn's bunks, but also optional activities and all camp games and things. And I'm trying to figure out, is 3 hours a week a good target for an individual kid to be able to be engaged? Or do they want way more than that or less? So yeah, I guess just whatever data you've been able to figure out from that so far.
I'm struggling to answer that based on our model, because we have, I would say, 5 what I'm calling like pro hometown stomping ground campers who literally come to everything, and then maybe the other majority is doing 2 hours a day. I don't know if that gives you an idea. Right now, we're able to make ours pretty individualized. So as far as our signups go, anyone can come to anything. For those daily options that we offered that are not the week longs, we've never had to go into breakout rooms or cap them. And for week longs, that's those activities people email me to sign up. So I do keep track of the number of people. And for those, actually only once for D&D did we open another room. But someone else might have a better way to answer of how you can like gauge what you should plan for your kids.
Well, and I don't know how big everybody's camp is, but our camp is about similar in size to Luke's camp, Luke and Alyssa's camp, ish. And Ben, I think your camp is about like 2 of ours at least.
I think that's about right.
So, we have about between 110 and 150 kids at a time. So we're pretty small. And so it's, I think we have definitely learned that the people that love Stomping Ground, like the kids that love Stomping Ground, are not necessarily the same kids that love hometown Stomping Ground. Like there's plenty of kids who couldn't love Stomping Ground more, who will never log on because this type of interaction is not what they're looking for. And some of the kids we found that love hometown Stomping Ground, like aren't the people that love Stomping Ground in the summer, even if they are campers during, like they like it, right? Like they're campers, but you have plenty of kids, I'm sure, that are like, yeah, camp is cool, I'll keep coming here, but they're not like, this place is the best, right? So
and we're doing spring break camp started today, and we are launching a model of 2 hours, so from 10 to 12. I will let you know how that goes, because the idea is that during the summer it would push from 9 to 12, because I think especially during the summer, like those kids should be outside playing, not sitting on a screen. So it would be like meet with your bunk, all camp, sing and dance, and then they get to choose their activities. And so I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, please do. I'm not sure yet, but I might save mine to launch around when they would be having camp anyway. And being a tech-free camp, it's of course a struggle for me to be like, so instead of camp, stay inside with your phone, so trying to figure out how to balance those, or at least get them to connect on their front lawn or something.
I really feel like Jack deserves like I was right about technology in camp, because for the last 3 years, he and I have been going back and forth about like, what's the right thing to do? And now I'm like, Jack was right. Who knew?
Well, we have what Luke is referring to is that we've had phones at camp for the last 5 years, and we don't have service. We hadn't had service. The new property we're moving to will have service, and we're actually very likely using this if we run camp this summer, which I am with Ben is, I think, a relatively low probability. We would likely use this as an excuse, not an excuse, but as a catalyst to tell our families that we won't have phones at camp, because we've been doing too much of this, and we feel like the pendulum has swung too far into screen time for what we're comfortable with, which like saves us some headaches and maybe is a little bit like undermined, but it's the reality of what we would likely do.
Yeah, no. When the world comes back, I think Tech Free Camp's going to be the thing. We're gonna we're gonna have lines around the corner when there's a planet again.
Has anyone started thinking about like a leadership project for maybe some of their like LIT or like CITs of either facility projects when everybody gets back or projects that they can do amongst their community to be active and be proactive as opposed to reactive kind of through this period?
I love that idea, and now I have, but only because you said it.
So I can do a little bit of talking about that, only because our camp runs a leadership training program called Flight, which is normally a weekend in May and then a week in one summer, and then a week in a second summer. So we bring them back. It's the year they turn 15, 16, 17, or sorry, 15 and 16. So we've already canceled our May weekend, and so I'm emailing the parents to say we're going online digital. Here's how we're going to do it. So just so you know what our flight directors have sent to us, we're going to be starting a Google Classroom that starts May 1st. We're going to be sending stuff out to them every week from now until the summer. In the chance that the summer runs, we want the summer to run as similar as we have in the past. Like it's going to be our same leadership development training program. We're basically taking our May weekend and pushing it online. They're going to have to we're using Flipgrid, which I've personally never used, but I've told is really great to create videos and talk to each other that way. And then we have a couple of resources, like we have a counselor training manual, like a leadership development manual that we've created that we're going to be mailing to them instead of handing to them on the May weekend. We also do hoodies that they usually get in the summer they pick a camp name. We do camp names at Beacon. It's going to have their camp name on the back. So we need to figure out a way to do like what we would we call it our naming ceremony. And like they all light a candle and get to say their camp name out loud for the first time and stuff. It's a fun tradition. So we're doing a lot of stuff like that. And then the idea is that instead of doing a really intensive week end, we're going to do a weekly check-in with our youth. There's 17 of them. So we do a weekly check-in, and then we're waiting to see if we can run in the summer, which like everyone else is doubtful. That's great. If not, we're already looking at moving all of our summer programs that would be week-long, running weekend and like sessions in the fall, and then inviting our staff to that, our leadership training staff to that. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now, but that's us reconfiguring an existing program, not creating an online Zoom program from scratch.
I will say that we don't know what we're going to do this summer. Like, I wouldn't say we have a good plan for what our virtual camp might look like this summer. What we're running now is what we're running now. My guess is we would continue to run something virtual during the summer, but I'm not sold on that idea, even if we can't operate camp. I don't know what we're going to do. But I imagine if we were to do something, it would be more intensive, short form than just like kind of I imagine we would change slightly our model of basically like drop-in childcare style is kind of what we're running now. You know, none of us want to be referred to as childcare, but like that's kind of what we're doing. And do more of like intensive, like Luke is talking about, 2 days, something like that. I don't know. We don't know what that would look like, and I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold on any of the ideas yet for us.
I can share a little bit from a different perspective. My background is in overnight and day camps, but right now I'm actually working for a children's museum. So it's a little different. We're going to run day camps in the summer. And I can just share here that our CEO, especially, she's been in touch with CEOs all over the world, including places like China, you know, people that are ahead of us on the curve. And what she's really learning is that people have been able to open back up in super limited capacity and then often close back down because the curve changes a little bit. So something we're thinking about, obviously online camp being the primary goal, but we have this kind of contingency planning going on for an outdoor only option for day camp. And there's a lot of considerations that go into that, but what we're learning from other institutions is a screening process. When everyone arrives, you get your temperature taken with a forehead scan, things like that. And also thinking about everything we do to handle supplies and how that will have to change based on CDC guidelines. So I think For me, outdoor camp seems like a little bit more approachable in my experience, because there's so much we can do outdoors and still practice social distancing. But as far as using indoor space, we're also going to try to hopefully open our museum at really limited capacity. But something to think about is we're going to have to entirely remove certain exhibits that have like too many manipulatives, just for health and safety. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that in case any of that insight is helpful. But the trend in other places around the world has been super limited opening, and we got to close again. And the super limited opening just having a lot of changes to capacity, programming, how we clean, all of that kind of stuff.
So, hi everybody. We are just sort of dipping our toe in and have been following all of this from afar. And Klee and Jack, like, congratulations. You guys are really rocking it. And all of your communications on Facebook and Instagram are awesome. And I think that you just having the bravery of doing it and just trying it out and struggling with it and having successes and having failures and learning from it is all like what everyone's kind of going through. We're a teacher family, so this whole e-learning thing, like our county like sent an email out on Friday and said we're going to start e-learning on Monday, and then they emailed the teachers on Saturday and told them what it was going to look like. So everybody is like kind of in this mode. So like as a camp, we kind of just stepped back to give like our families some of that learning space and struggling with it, and kind of just done some like touch base on Instagram and fun stuff with campers. We've done like a lot of charity work with our camp where people are like coming to our house and dropping off donations for food, and we're feeding some of the families like in our local school areas that a lot of our parents didn't know about. And then we're collecting medical supplies for a lot of the like doctors and nurses that are, you know, parents in our camp. So we're kind of like keeping in touch with families that way and bringing them together because they want to help but don't really know how. But then at the same time, like all of you guys are feeling, it's like you read something on the news one day and we're opening, yay! And then you read something else, you're like, oh God, we're closing. So then it's like, where do you put your energy into like the online stuff? And so having you guys be role models and going through this and so that we can learn from it has been awesome. But I just want to say one of the ideas that we're kind of kicking around and what you guys maybe think of this, but we're local camp, so we're a day camp, was having campers sign up for online camp, but then giving them little boxes of goodies that would be part of the lessons and the arts and crafts that they would need to do, or part of the maker space that they needed to do, or have directions be in there. So it wasn't all technically online, but like have check-ins with their counselors that are live, and then they'd have the materials in these boxes to go forth and do the activity. So are you guys hearing anything like around that? What do you think of that? Do you think that's sustainable? Like, is that just more work for what effort? Like, I don't even know like what the you know, I literally have no idea what to do moving forward. So what are your thoughts?
We talked about that, but then had the issue of like who is putting together these boxes, because everything is closed, and so that kind of halted that conversation. But in another call, we definitely talked about sending each kid at least like a shirt or a swag item so they could be a part of it. And I would love to send the kit. I think the kids at similar or day camp, and they definitely have like crayons and markers, so it's not like we'd be giving them stuff they didn't have, but any cool swag item we could send, I think would go a long way.
I love that. And we've started talking about like I've heard people call it like camp in a box or those kind of things. And one of the like you, Jen, we've been playing with but haven't done anything about is an idea like that where let's say it's a 3-day program or week-long program. You get one box that whatever in the schedule is, do some of like build a craft by yourself, check in with somebody, go outside and take a picture of yourself. I don't know, take a picture of a leaf that you find, like, I don't know, like whatever the thing is, but it's like some form of bouncing between interaction like this and going and doing stuff by yourself at your home. And a struggle we're having with that is thinking about the equity of that, and not just in terms of like financial resources, but so many of our kids are in New York City, and so they can't go outside. So like we can't, like lots of our families would love it if we were like, go out, like do something where you go outside and do whatever and then come back and report. And lots of our families would be like, well, I can't do that. So, so we're trying to figure out how to balance all of that for us. And I imagine it's different in Maryland. It's going to be different for every community. So, but yes, I love the idea of figuring out a package to send that includes some kind of blah, 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 that leads to things.
We've got some counselor curated tech-free challenges going on our blog right now.
That happens to Ben at Lindley G. Cook 4-H camp occasionally, where we lose him for a little bit.
It's convenient because he cut off Lila when she was going to say something.
Yeah, Lila, why don't you go? And Ben will catch up, I'm sure.
I was just going to say, so I work for an organization in Canada, and we actually made the decision to cancel all of our summer programs entirely, or I guess like in the traditional sense last week. Particularly, we work with a pretty specific population, so our programs are all geared towards families who have been affected by childhood cancer. So obviously keeping that in mind, they're pretty, a bit of a more delicate population than normal. So we wanted to make sure that we were being extra safe. But we are now exploring the idea of, similar to what was mentioned, of kind of doing that camp in a box style for the summer. But we've also been pairing that with what we're calling like a virtual camp space. So on top of doing live Zoom meetings and activities, we're also kind of compiling like a resource that families can access whenever, with activity sheets, as well as like instructional videos or just fun things like that. So that we're just trying to find the balance, like you guys said, of having families have to commit to being in certain programs, or are they accessing things whenever they can, and making sure that, again, they have all of the supplies also necessary to engage in our programs in an equitable way.
Yeah, I was thinking we kind of have like a built-in sweatshop. We have 3 teenage boys in our house. And so I was like, well, that'll be awesome. We could just have stuff delivered, have them make the boxes, deliver and drop off on people's doorsteps, kind of like a win-win piece to it. But yeah, I mean, like, who even knows like supply and demand of getting things shipped here and costs and all that kind of stuff. I think we're so used to like ordering on Amazon and it being there like that afternoon. Like that always freaks me out when you order it and then the doorbell rings. But like we got to kind of figure that out, and when do we make that decision and how do we get our supplies? So that's a big moving parts constantly.
As a formerly tech-free camp, one of our strong values was trying to connect kids to nature. And so I know like that's one of Alyssa's big passions at Beacon is, how do I connect kids to nature? And so what we've kind of looked at doing from a virtual camp perspective is having virtual options that is like the core. It's very similar to Klee and Jack, what you guys are doing at Hometown Stomping Ground, but then providing additional options to keep it. So we keep the core stuff as affordable as we can. Maybe we ask for like $25 maybe a week for the whole summer. So like $200 for the summer per family, because we have lots of families with 5 kids or 4 kids. So it becomes suddenly we've reduced the cost to the family really effectively. Instead of being, we're normally $400 a week, which I know is low, but that's where we're at. We're an all volunteer camp. So instead of having $400 per kid, which would be, $2,400 for a family of 6, they've only got to pay $200 to access all of our virtual stuff. And then the first thing I did when I thought about all this happening, I don't know if y'all have that with the U.S. Postal Service, but we have they're called flat rate boxes. So like this box, this size with 11 pounds worth of stuff in it ships for $17, and then this box ships for $22. And as long as it's under 11 pounds, they guarantee it to arrive anywhere in Canada. And so we basically have bought a couple of them, and I just shove stuff in them once in a while and weigh it and say, okay, what can we put in there? Like, can we put in a camp t-shirt? Can we put into this? Can we put into that? And then the second part of that, because we value hands-on connection so much, is that we're trying to partner with local businesses that we already partnered with before. We have some friends of ours run an escape room / board game store. So we've just said, listen, we don't have the resources right now. Can you design an escape room for us that we mail home to our kids every week? So right now they're working on, it's called like Flappy Pets Investigators, the FPI. And it's like super cheesy and it's going to be amazing. Like the artwork she's done already is phenomenal, but the kids basically will get a journal at the start of the week. Oh, Ben's back, party's over. So they get like a journal in this box at the start of the week if they sign up for the escape room electives. And then every week in the mail, we just send them a letter that is like the next step. One of the things that the first week they get it, there's going to be a giant map of a fictional camp, and that map is going to have the escape room baked into it. So they need to use locations on the map to figure it all out. And this is giving employment to like a friend of ours who otherwise wouldn't have work. And so my encouragement there is like, look for, like we called our Portage Promotionals is the company that does all our camp swag. And I was like, what can you do for us? They're like, we can order anything you need. Just give us business. They're losing 95% of their business this month. And this is like supposed to be their big season. So I would just say, if you can activate, Jennifer, specifically to what you're saying about the Amazon thing, if you can activate people who already are in the supply chain, they're very likely going to be willing to do stuff that is outside their normal in order to help you if you're willing to pay them to do it. And then you're going to look great because you're giving people work too.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Luke. I hadn't even considered like going ahead and ordering our camp t-shirts. We do new shirts designs every year, of going ahead and ordering them and then sending them out to this group of campers anyway, that we're all kind of in this together. Like you had said, one of our parents owns a company and they were in charge of all of the swag for the Cherry Blossom Festival here in DC, which is like millions of people who come. And now he's like, I have, 70 pallets of cherry blossom swag sitting in my office, and he's like, you can order your t-shirts and they can be here at any time because there's no proms, there's no spring events, no teams. He's like, no orders are coming in. So I think that's a great idea of just going ahead and doing that expense and connecting the community who signed up for this summer, regardless if camp happens or not.
Our catchphrase on our t-shirts, we're calling our virtual camp Beacon Unlimited because we're not limited by our physical space. But the catchphrase is going to be a summer like no other, because if this ever happens again, I'm so out. I'm not. The other thing the last thing I wanted to mention is we're looking at doing a camp-wide craft. So to create an art piece at camp that's based on all the campers who are involved participating, and even campers who can't afford like the major stuff, like maybe camper sponsorship goes towards mailing it out to every kid who should have been at Beacon this summer. And one of the ideas we've had is creating like 6-inch by 6-inch pixel squares where they paint them. And then we number them on the back and they mail them up to us, and we create an art mural, like a pixelated art mural that describes this summer. Just things like that, because the value of nature, but also the value of community, so that in the future, when kids come back to camp, they'll see it and be like, oh yeah, that was me. I was there. That was a part of this. Staff can do it. So staff can say they had a hand in it. I was thinking, every staff who volunteers on we're already a volunteer camp, but any virtual staff would get one of these squares as well to paint. So just some ideas that you can please steal. My wife has started screen sharing. I'm not sure why.
That's so good, Luke. I feel like good ideas I like steal and credit. Brilliant ideas I'm going to steal and tell my staff that's mine. That's too good to pretend that I didn't come up with on my own. That's really lovely. I've been thinking about ways to, if they're not at camp this summer, how do you return and feel like you were, and having that physical thing that everybody contributed to. That's awesome. I really like that.
Yeah. So the thing that Alyssa's showing right now is a collaborative circle art display that we're also exploring. So those are old CDs on the inside that are then woven with yarn. So all you have to do is send again, in these boxes, we're looking like, can we send home some yarn, and can we send home an old CD or buy new CDs, which I would feel terrible about in terms of wastefulness. But I was like, can we make those CDs out of cardboard? No, crap. But something like that would be beautiful to hang in our camp dining hall. Like Jack, Klee, I think of you guys at Stomping Ground and your brand new facility, it sucks that you might not have camp this summer there, but how cool would it be to start the camp season in 2021 if you had to, with Stomping Ground art already on site? There's some positives there that I get excited for you guys, because I'm gonna come live at Stomping Ground when Beacon lets me go. I don't know.
I love that, and I think that likely we should do another one of these in a week or so, with a more idea sharing, and it doesn't have to be so Stomping Ground focused as the beginning of this was, because that was just the way that we originally started it. But I think I want to hear, selfishly, I want to hear lots more about what other people are doing, so we can continue to steal your ideas. And so thank you so much for for this. I'm happy to run over on things, but we've got kids coming in for D&D pretty soon. Please, if you took any notes at all, send them to Klee and she'll compile them, and then we'll send them back out to everybody so you can hear, like, and for me, please, just if you have notes that don't make any sense, you don't think, also include those, because when I'm in any of these things, 90% of the time, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Bam, I'm on some wild other idea that has nothing to do with what anyone's talking about, and I come up with the next baby idea for me, and I want your little baby ideas that might grow into awesome stuff so that we can all share those. I think that what's happening right now is that there's medical professionals and cleaning staff and so many people out there who are the front line of making sure that people stay alive and people stay healthy. And that's so important. And what we are going to be is the second wave of taking care of the mental health crisis that's coming in this country. That's going to be like nothing we've ever seen. And the work that you're going to do this summer, this fall, that we're going to do, all of us are going to do, is going to end up saving lives as well. It's just going to save them in a very different way. And I want to do everything we can to help each other to do more, to be there for those kids when they leave camp, or those families, and or when they leave, they're able to leave their homes and go out into the world. So your work is going to matter more than ever. If you're anything like me, you go from dejected to even more dejected every day, and then you have these like bright spots of hope where you like find a way to get through it. And I hope that kind of working together, we can provide some more hope stuff for each other. So if you have ideas, send them to us. We'll keep sharing them and spreading the word as much as possible on awesome ideas. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think we're going to have physical camp this summer in New York, but I still have my fingers crossed. I'm like Ben. I'm like, can I get like a weird weekend at the end of September where I can get like 300 kids to camp, even though there's not beds for 300 kids? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how can I do all kinds of wild ideas at the very end of this if that's what's going to have to happen? So you're amazing. Keep spreading the good news. If you want the good news, wow, I did go to a lot of Catholic school, Luke. And
Happy Easter, Jack. Happy Easter.
If you want to log into a hometown stomping ground event, just go and register, and you can just pop in. And whoever's hosting, usually it'll be Klee or Ray, might be like, wait a minute, who are you again? And they'll just check in on what's going on. But you can register for that if you want to see what we're doing. No, it's all free and whatever, so no stress. And we run lots of yoga, so maybe you can't come.
I personally have no problem with yoga. It's just I have crazy religious parents sometimes who are on a different spectrum than me, who corner me and say my kid will never come to camp again unless you refute this. So anyways.
Well, we could never have guns at Stomping Ground, so it's like, you know, we've got wild people on all the ends of the spectrum. Ours just happen to usually be crazy liberals.
Thank you,
Klee,
everyone. I have some kids texting me that are like, what's happening? So I'm going to end this. Please keep sending us questions and whatever you got. Thank you, everyone, for agreeing to come together on this. And we'll do it soon. Again, thanks, everyone.